It's time for the Financial Crisis Talk Center with Ken Gross and David Einstandig from Thav Gross.
Credit card debt is number one. I view it as financial cancer.
40% of your gross income is going to just pay the debt service. You got no chance of getting out.
I would give up my credit score to get rid of debt.
Here's your host, Ken Gross.
Good morning. Welcome to the Financial Crisis Talk Center. The word and expression of the day today is short sale. We are going to focus on everything you need to know about the word short sale. I've got Brian Small with me. Good morning, Brian. Nice to see you.
Is that a pun? Short sale, Brian Small?
If you want to put it that way, that's fine.
I don't know.
I wasn't going to do that to you. You said be nice to you this week, and I made a pledge that I'll at least go for a couple hours.
I would call it.
You had that smile and smirk on your face when you said it. So
I would call it a fact.
A fact?
Yeah.
Nice to see you, David
Einstandig.
You've got your headphones on and you're here. You look a little short today. Was your seat too low?
I think
he got his haircut too.
Sorry to see
sitting
that.
on the ground.
We've got a couple guests with us in the studio this morning. I've got Alan Stalter, short sale specialist, REO Elite Services with us. Alan's one of the sponsors on our show as well. Good morning, Alan. Nice to have you with us.
Good morning, Ken.
We're going to go over with Alan in this segment of the show, the short sale, but also in the studio who just happened to be hanging around. It's Pat Simasco, my good buddy, elder law specialist, attorney, and also a sponsor on the show.
Thank you.
And Pat's going to join us for the next segment, and we're going to talk about elder law financial issues and a buzzword expression, cannot afford to lose, and to figure out what that means. But let's talk about short sales right now. Now that we've covered Brian's role in the short sale, I think we can talk more in terms of the real heart and soul of what we're talking about. First of all, Alan, how long have we known each other? Probably 5-6 years.
I'd say, 5-6 years.
Alan and I in the Financial Crisis Talk Center, got to know Alan in the midst and in the heart of the financial crisis because we dove in deep in the area of dealing with short sales. We've always dealt with trying to avoid foreclosure for people, and we were looking for a broker that we could forge a relationship with that would work well, and so that we had both sides of the team focusing on the right issues on how to get a short sale approved. And it's been a great relationship that's gone on for 5 years of short selling property. And you would be amazed, everyone hears the term short sale, but they don't know what goes into getting that deal closed. And that's what we're going to cover in the show. There's a lot to get through and do it. What we found with Alan was he was a magician in finding buyers, particularly at the time when there were no buyers, in 2010, 2011. And then the synergy between both of our offices in getting these deals approved, worked wonders.
So what you're saying, Ken, is he's the matchmaker. He's the fiddler on the roof.
Yeah, there you go.
He's Tevye.
Yeah, if we would have set that up right, then Chris would have known to give us a little background music on Fiddler on the Roof. But,
if we were that good, we'd get paid for this.
Like speed dating.
Or if anyone in this room could sing, someone could start singing it. But
I think Brian can sing.
No. If Brian sings, it will drive the rest of the audience away.
That's a non-starter in this group, I can tell you right now. All right, so let's talk. All right, so Alan, you've been doing short sales since 2002. I did a little research on your website last night. Specializing in single-family residences, condominiums, multifamily properties. You graduate. This is a good thing. Graduated Michigan State University. He's a Spartan. Too bad for you, Brian.
What? My daughter's going to state next year.
You're wearing a blue shirt today. Is this a neutral shirt, or is this still a U of M color in your mind?
It was a clean golf shirt, and it was on top.
There you go. Okay, the truth comes out. All right, let's talk about short sales. I want to start off with a definition of a short sale because, unlike what Brian was referring to, it has nothing to do with height. It has to do with amount, what it comes down to. If you sell your home for less than the amount that you owe on the mortgages that are liens against the property, in order to make that sale go through, by definition, you are selling short. You are short of the money needed to discharge the liens to the lenders. So that's the definition. how you get there is where the effort and the work comes in. And there's a couple nuances in that if it's a Fannie Mae or a Freddie Mac mortgage, those regulatory agencies have specific rules and criteria that you must meet in order for that short sale to get approved. If you're not a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac mortgage, there's other criteria that has to be met, but it's dictated by the lenders, and it varies from lender to lender, but for the most part, we know what that criteria is. But the real important thing for people to realize is you can't just, okay, I'm going to short sell my home and find the buyer, and voila, the lender's going to say, okay, we'll let you do that and we'll release you from any deficiency claim. It's not that simple. You have to fit in the criteria. So it's kind of a puzzle, and you need to know, all the little nuances to the puzzle. You need to know how the pieces fit together first, so you then make sure you pick the right pieces to make the short sale work. Now, if you have a second mortgage on the property, those rules are pretty much dictated by each lender. It's not a Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac issue, so you have to also know how do you get off the hook on the second mortgage. Now, a lot of times when you're dealing with the issue, let's say the house is worth $250,000, the first mortgage is $260,000, and the second mortgage is $40,000. Your big fight is going to be on the second mortgage. The first lender, if they're going to go short about $10,000, that's usually kind of easy to get accomplished. But the big challenge is, how do you get out from under that second mortgage where the lender will release the lien and waive the deficiency claim? That's what you have to worry about. All right, so that's kind of the background on a short sale. I want to talk about key issues. All right, David, when I say eliminate, first issue, this is, to me, the bottom line important part of a short sale. Eliminate the deficiency. What do I mean?
Well, what you mean is when you were talking about that you're selling the house for less than what you owe on it, that spread, that difference, that amount is a deficiency. And you must, in order, in our opinion, to have a successful short sale, have the lender release the borrower, the seller, of that deficiency. And you have to set it up before and not later.
Alan, you saw it. It was kind of like we've come so far in the financial crisis from where things were at the chaotic state in 2009. But there were so many short sales that happened, none of which, because you always knew what you were doing. But you had inexperienced brokers out there that were handling short sales, and people were thinking that the short sale was approved because they get an approval letter. But if you read the 8-point font in the approval letter said, we are releasing the lien, we will accept this amount of money, and we are not discharging the obligation on the note, which was to say, after you've sold the house, we can still sue you for the balance that you're owed. And there were so many of those letters that the brokers wouldn't. I don't think the brokers intentionally were deceiving people. I don't think they read the letters. And then they'd give the homeowner the letter and say, here, your short sale's approved. And then down the road, the homeowner looks at the letter and says, whoa, I could still get sued on this.
Well, I'm interested, Alan, how has that from the 2009 that Ken just described, more currently through today, how is that deficiency from a broker end, from your end, is being dealt with?
Well, in a lot of cases, I'm getting a lot of calls now too from old clients that had that, not my clients, but that closed a short sale, and now the lenders are coming after them for the deficiency. Years later, 2-3 years later.
They go, ooh, got it.
Yeah, and I also have some old clients that called me just the other day, and they wanted a copy of their letter because it did waive the deficiency, and the lender was still trying to collect from them.
Yeah, you can always count on the lender for doing what they're not supposed to do. That's the one consistent thing that we found out with the whole thing. We're coming up to a break. We come back, we're going to stay right on this topic.
Tax problems are major problems. Don't let the IRS levy your wages and seize your assets. There is a solution.
We're Thav Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
If you're behind on your taxes and owe money to the IRS, call Thav Gross.
We've been solving tax problems for 32 years. We stop wage levies, resolve unfiled returns, and obtain the best possible settlements.
Call Thav Gross today, 888-235-HELP.
You like your job. What you don't like is the way your boss has been treating you. He's making comments about how you look instead of your work, and he's been touching you inappropriately. If you complain, is he allowed to fire you? Absolutely not. Unwelcome sexual comments, advances, and contact are illegal in the workplace. Make him pay. Gold Star Law is here to help you through your employment law problem, whatever it is.
Gold Star Law, protecting employees' rights. Call 1-800-WAGES-10 for a free consultation today.
Is the debt piling up? Struggling to get by?
It's all about preserving future income. Bankruptcy is one option. When it's right, it's the least costly, most effective way to save your home, eliminate a second mortgage, and wipe out credit card debt. But you need to address the problem now.
We help people with bankruptcy. Call the experts.
We're Thav Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
Every family has the family meeting, and we all know what that means. Dad's got dementia. What are we going to do? What's the care plan that the family has in place? Usually they don't, or they struggle with a care plan. When you go home tonight and you talk to your tax person and you talk to your financial person, say, what's the plan that you have in place? And as soon as they don't give you an answer, give me a call, because I can do it for you.
All right, welcome back. We're talking with Alan Stalter, Elite REO Services, about short sales. The first thing we talked about before we went to the break was we were saying that it's critical to make sure that the approval of that process results in a waiver of the deficiency. That's the fundamental. Now, the next issue that I think is important that people don't realize is you have to submit and obtain. The lender just doesn't approve this. You have to submit documents.
I want to point out, Ken, though, that you said it's essential to get the waiver of the deficiency. If you're not going to get the deficiency waived, which does still happen at times, you need to understand what the tax consequences of that are, or the actual consequences of what you're still going to owe, because sometimes it's still to your advantage to short sell and have a liability still owed to the second lender versus what you might have to fork out of your pocket to keep that property. So
no question about it, but so like, is this a trick by you to like jump ahead on the outline so that we could, is this a payback? Even though I didn't make a comment relative to the short sale.
No.
Are you paying me back here? Is this what's going on?
Are you
here?
assuming?
I guess I am.
You're assuming that he read the outline. And what happens when you assume? Have you ever seen the Bad News Bears?
Absolutely.
Okay.
He represented outside of this room before that I have read the outline, quote unquote. I have multiple witnesses. I believe he did read the outline. He was just excited about the tax consequences. We're going to hold that till a little bit later, and I'm going to come back to you.
Perused it.
So, but you're 100% right, Brian. There's complications and there's issues. The first thing is in order to get this short sale approved, the lender's going to require things that are submitted, and they have to be submitted at the time the purchase agreement where you have the buyer is there. They're going to give you a form that requires financial information, your assets, your liabilities, your income. They're going to want 2 months bank statements, and they're going to want to look at those bank statements and see how much cash you have. Now, suppose you have $50,000 of cash sitting in your savings account, a non-IRA account, not a 401k account, because they won't look at those monies. What would you do if you were a lender? Just put your shoes, just think the thing through rational. If you were the lender and you were owed the money and you were being asked to go short and take less, and you were given a bank statement that showed that the client had $50,000 in the bank and you were short $30,000 on the sale, wouldn't it make sense if you were the lender saying, I would like the $30,000. You've got it.
Alan, what do you see the lenders do in that case? On the ones that are submitted that you haven't worked on?
They usually don't ask for the full amount, but they will ask for a cash contribution.
And they'll ask for a lot.
Yeah.
Now, so that's where planning comes in. Now, it's not, first of all, the rule number one, never, never, never lie. You cannot fill out these forms and lie. You can't put the money in cash and say you don't have the cash because it's a federal form, and if you lie and you get caught, people have gone to jail for that. And this is not worth that kind of anxiety or that kind of outcome. So what you do is you plan carefully. But you know that at the time you turn in this purchase agreement, they're going to want 2 months bank statements. So if you're planning this thing out 3-4 months ahead of time, you might want to go to Brian and say to him, what can I do with that money so that it's not showing up in my bank account and I'm not lying?
That's an absolutely correct statement. You should come to me, and then we'll figure it out. It depends.
Well,
can we make contributions to an IRA? Can we put some money back into a 401k?
Could we buy a car?
Could we make purchases to improve our house, or buy our new house, or do other things?
So the whole point being is, if you go into this thing blind and you just do it and you fill out the form and you lay out that you've got all this cash there, you're going to compromise your bargaining position at the end of the deal when you're trying to get that short sale waived. But you can do planning, because 2 months bank statements. That's the basic rule. So before the cutoffs on those 2 months bank statements, you got to spend down the money. You can't take the money and stick it in a shoebox and say, "Oh, I don't have the money." Because when you put down on the form cash, it doesn't matter whether the cash is in the bank or whether the cash is in the shoebox. It's still cash. That would be lying. People make the mistake of allowing themselves to get suckered into these types of transactions and to lie when they don't need to. There's no reason ever to do that. You got to start with the rule that says, I'm not going to do anything illegal. I'm going to do things smart. So that's where the planning
I hear
comes
judges lose their jobs
and go to jail.
Yeah.
Yes, they do.
Absolutely. I mean, no better example than that. Now, there's another big issue on a short sale, and that is cancellation of indebtedness income, which was what Brian was kind of jumping out at the gate to bring up. If you sell that house and the lender waives the deficiency, you have no further obligation to us. They will issue you a 1099-C at the end of the year, which goes to our friend, the IRS, that says it's reported as income, unless you fit within an exception. Now, there's one major exception that expired 12/31/13 that may get extended that applies to short sales. If it's a principal residence, this is not rental property, and the mortgage indebtedness went to the purchase or improvement of the home, cancellation of indebtedness through the end of last year was excluded from income. It's been a big hot issue as to whether it'll get extended this year. It's moving forward. The Senate passed an extension on on a whole bunch of tax extender bills last month, and it's now moved to the House. They come back in session April 28th, and that is expected to pass along with the others with retroactive effect.
Alan, that's an important issue, and you always get into that line, am I practicing law, am I a tax attorney, am I not? But when you meet with clients and there's a potential for a substantial cancellation of indebtedness, how do those conversations go? Do the clients ever ask, or do you bring it up to make sure that they do seek and obtain the advice they need? What do you see?
Well, we always, when we meet with them, discuss the two most important issues, which is the waiver of the deficiency and the cancellation of debt. And they usually are aware of the first one, but the second one a lot of times catches them off guard. And so we always recommend that they talk to their accountant or hire someone such as Thab Gross to guide them through the process, because most real estate brokers don't have any real estate training in negotiating with the banks. They just simply call Bank of America, get the steps for the short sale, send in the docs. Hey, great, we got our approval letter, let's close. And they're not there advising and consulting with the client on their financial and tax implications.
See, so you run in, we're coming up to a break, but you run into the problem of, if it's not a personal residence, there's other exceptions on rental property to get out of cancellation of indebtedness income, and that kind of goes where you're able to use the loss on the buy of the property to offset against the debt. But it's a tax issue that you need to make sure of, because just like what Brian says, better not to sell than to end up with a big non-dischargeable tax liability.
Absolutely.
And we'll be back after the break.
Are you struggling to pay your mortgage? Afraid of foreclosure and the financial mess it can cause? Time is not on your side. Call Alan Stalter, the short sale specialist. For years, Alan has been helping distressed homeowners navigate through the short sale process. His experience will get you out of your home without the credit score damage that follows foreclosure. If you want a fresh start, you need to call Alan Stalter, the short sale specialist, 248-854-3829. or MetroDetroitShortSale.com.
Carrying too much debt? Resolve your debt. Call Thav Gross.
You don't need to be broke, and you don't need to hit rock bottom. If you have income and you're struggling with debt, dump it. Think about the next 10 or 20 years. If you do what the banks tell you, you'll have nothing to retire with. There is a solution.
Don't waste your future. Call Fav Gross. We're experts at eliminating credit card debt. 888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
Going from hourly to salary seemed like a good career move, but now you're working 60 hours a week instead of 40, and you aren't getting paid any of that extra time. You're stuck, right? Wrong. You can be on salary and still be entitled to overtime. If you've been wrongly denied such pay, you may be entitled to that and more. Gold Star Law is here to help you through your employment law problem, whatever it is.
Gold Star Law, protecting employees' rights. Call 1-800-WAGES-10 for a free consultation today.
We had some good hot debate on short sales during the break, but before we come back to this, I want to just get a couple opening announcements. We've got a seminar coming up, Financial Crisis Talk Center seminar coming up called Strategic Debt Elimination, Wednesday, April 30th from 7 to 8:30 p.m. At our Bingham Farms offices. And also, for our Lansing audience, we have a seminar on Wednesday, May 7th, 7 to 8:30 at the downtown Lansing Public Library. If you want to sign up for it, go to our website, stavgross.com or fctalkcenter.com. There's a registration form there, or you can just hit or call like the old-fashioned way, 888-235-HELP, and we'll take your call and get you registered that way. The seminars cover all of these issues, short sales, loan mods. There's a new regulation, Reg X, that came into effect January 10th this year that now governs the loss mitigation process on all first mortgages. It happens to be a good tool that we're using to leverage people into getting loan mods and to buy more time for short sales. And very few people actually know the benefits of Reg X. We're doing a whole big part of our seminar on that. Also, the big issues of getting rid of credit card debt. What's the best way of doing it? It's not just file bankruptcy. It's not just you don't file bankruptcy. It's figuring out the smartest way so that the mantra, so that you can preserve your future income for you and your family rather than letting it go to pay debts of the past. And just as a little side note, last month, Bank of America was fined $727 million for forced to refund money for improper bank add-on charges, like for identity theft protection and things, fictitious services that they weren't really providing, plus a $45 million penalty. Since the Consumer Protection Bureau came into effect in 2010, starting in 2012, the major banks have been fined $1.44 billion for outrageous conduct. My only point to that is they don't deal fairly with you and with us. So your job is to deal appropriately for yourself, and if you can find a strategy that keeps your money in your bank and in your hands rather than giving it to them, those are the new rules of the game. That's how we play the game, and that's, I think, the fair way of doing it. No one's looking out for you except yourself. All right, and then we also have another seminar coming up, which we'll talk about in the next segment of the show. We're going to cover as well with Pat Simasco, and that's dealing with elder law issues. And that seminar is going to be on Tuesday, May 13th at the Grosse Pointe War Memorial, and also on Wednesday, May 21st at the Royal Oak Public Library. If you want to sign up for that, you go to cannotaffordtolose.com. That's cannotaffordtolose.com, and that's as in you cannot afford to lose all your life's work that you've put in because you're facing going into the nursing home possibility, or you're in your elder years and you have to make some key important decisions. You can also call 888-235-HELP to register for that. I want to thank our sponsors, Simasco Law, Elite REO Services, Alan Stalter, Gold Star Law, Trips Auto Shop and Body Shop and Collision Shop, and coming on board U.S. Staffing, as well as Cardiology Associates of Michigan. Now, back to the short sale. Now, there's a lot of tax consequences, but we're running short on time, so I want to throw out the big issue. We get to closing, or we've submitted the short sale approval to the lender. The lender comes back and says, you know what? We have to get $225,000 out of this closing in order to release the deficiency claim and walk away. But the HUD shows that they're only going to get $205,000. So the lender is in effect saying, you got to come up with 10 more grand Otherwise, no deal. We won't waive the deficiency. What do you do in that case? Alan sees that all the time. We see that all the time. And what you have is differing positions and differing desires from 4 different people. The buyer always wants to buy the home for the lowest price. The seller, his job is to sell the home and get off the hook to the bank. He doesn't care about the price because he's not going to see a penny out of the house. The broker wants the deal to close because they've worked hard up to this point of finding a buyer, which is what their job is, and getting the buyer approved for their mortgage. So they don't want to see the deal go because brokers make their money on commission by deals closing. So they're vested in seeing the deal close. And then us, the seller's attorney, we kind of play the bad guy role because we want to see the deal close, but only if the seller gets off the hook.
So what happens now?
In that case where the bank comes back and they want more money than the HUD shows, the first thing we do is we always go back to the buyer and the buyer's agent with a counter. And depending on how bad they want the property, they usually will accept that. And in this market right now that's very tight in inventory, and it's hard to find a property. You know, as a buyer, you're looking at 30, 40, sometimes 50 houses. Most are amenable towards paying the higher price.
Okay, or at least a portion, if not the entire amount.
Right.
So the buyer often in that situation gets squeezed. Is it that bad of a squeeze play? Well, not really, because the buyer, when they're buying a short sale, thinks that they're getting a super good deal because they're coming in at the low end of the market, and it's considerably less than what that house would have cost in 2007. But the buyer doesn't like it, so you get pushback from the buyer. The brokers do a good job of going back to the buyer and convincing and working the buyer. We go back to the seller and say, your appraisal's way off, you're out of your mind, we're not going to close this deal at all. Fine, you can go ahead and foreclose if you want. You're not going to see a penny on this property for 5 years unless you give us a little bit more room here. And then the lenders sometimes budge a little bit there, but the lenders get tough. Sometimes we have to kick in. The buyer, the lender's saying, we got to have 15 grand more at the closing. We go to the lender and we say, how about 2,500? And then the lender sometimes says yes, or we say, how about 2,500 now and 5,000 over a 10-year note, 0 interest at $50 a month. The point is, you fight to make the deal, but you don't make the deal unless at the end of the day the seller's getting off the hook on the deficiency. And like Brian had said before, we've covered the tax consequences so we don't get that 1099-C and all of a sudden have a ton of taxable income coming out of the thing. Unfortunately, the half hour flew by, and we don't have any more time really to go over things. I want to thank Alan Stalter from Elite REO Services for joining us today. Alan, what's your phone number if people need to reach you?
248-854-3829.
I'm telling you, if you need to sell a house, this is the guy that you want to talk to. We'll be back with the next segment of the Financial Crisis Talk Center.